Okay, hello folks, welcome to Bears Bowley Go Disco Decks, where we review Star Trek Discovery Season 4.
Yeah,
And this is Episode 3, Choose to Live.
yeah. Uh,
Good episode.
it was, yes.
I like Romulan Battle Nuns.
I love Romulan battle nuns. Yes.
I mean, they're just
So
an excuse to put swords in Star Trek, because, let's be honest, sword fights look way more interesting than phaser fights. But
they do. Yes.
I'm okay with that.
Mm.
I also came to a
Um,
conclusion while watching this episode,
Go on.
and having just recently watched the latest series of Doctor Who. Modern Star Trek kind of reminds me of New Who at times.
I get you.
I think just
Yeah, I get you.
injecting emotion into the into the kind of situation.
Mm. Yeah, I get you. I get you. And of course, it's
And
like,
also, Romulan Battle is a ridiculous concept that Doctor Who would be proud of.
oh, it totally is. And I think obviously, especially with the new series of Disco being set so far in the future, we are getting to see either evolutions of existing species that we're aware of. Like obviously, there was a bit of kerfuffle about the Ferengi,
Yes.
or we're seeing brand new species as well. So it does have that Doctor Who-y feel. And I
Oh.
think this episode in particular was like a bit Doctor Who-y.
I just scrolled down through the top review of a series as we've got the episode up on IMDb.
Mm.
And here's the thing. I've noticed negative reviews, even on something overwhelmingly positive, seem to get pushed to the forefront. Like, I was looking at reviews of a Blu-ray for the new series of Doctor Who on Amazon recently, and it's got it wasn't the first Jodie Whittaker series of Doctor Who I was actually looking at,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and it's a 4.5 star rating, which would imply that the majority of reviews there are good, but every single review it showed me
Yeah,
were 1 star ones.
yeah.
And I've just scrolled down on Disco, and the first review is, "The few people that enjoy it censored me.
What?
Poor safe space dwelling cowards." It's like, these people should just die mad.
Like how? And this is about the last episode.
No, this is just about Discovery in general.
Discovery.
Oh, no, actually, it might be the last episode. It was reviewed in December the 5th, 2021, so it might be this.
So why? In what way would? I mean, obviously,
And I'm pretty sure at
there's-
this point you've decided you don't like the show. Why are you watching it?
because people like to hate, James.
Yeah, like, surely you've got
Yeah.
something better to do with your time. Like, watch something you enjoy. Like, maybe old Star Trek that still exists.
Yeah. Which surprise, surprise, was woke for its time, James. I mean, I'm just gonna put it out there.
It's the same
So
people who complain that
all these people
modern superheroes are it's like all the morals of the things they grew up watching just went over their heads.
completely over their head.
Yeah.
It's like that Superman meme. But like, it's baffling, isn't it? Because there's so many things like this, or like the Star Wars, where there's a like in Star Wars, there's a very obvious good and bad. Like, yes, there might be some people who blur the lines in the middle of it, but like, there's a very obvious good and bad. And Star Trek, in each of its eras, has been pushing boundaries for mainstream American television. Like, it always has done. Like, yes, retrospectively, it might be that some elements have aged, and so you could maybe nitpick a little bit, but it's always been the case that Star Trek has been morally ahead of the United States, and as a whole, anyway.
Also, there's a line in it that's saying this show is clearly failing and will be cancelled on its 4th season.
Fourth season, yeah. The thing that has spawned like Picard, because Picard wouldn't have happened without this. Strange New Worlds, Lower Decks, Prodigy.
And Alex Kurtzman's going to be fired any day now. He's already been
He
fired
will.
several times. Like,
He's totally going to be. He's going to get the same. He's going to get the Kathleen Kennedy treatment. He'll be fired and then rehired with a longer, more lucrative contract.
yeah,
So, like, it's
fired,
going to happen.
Fired so hard you're promoted.
Yeah, that sort of job. Yeah. And like, it just, I can't honestly see how people can be so closed to what was going on.
Also,
like,
just don't get why you carry on watching something you are. I know why, because you want to be able to come online and write angry reviews.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
like,
yeah.
surely, or maybe they're just joyless and don't like anything. But surely there's something you like out there that you could have spent that hour watching instead and had a good time.
But you see, the woke folk out there are ruining it for them, James, because
And it retroactively ruins the rest of Star Trek.
It does. It retroactively ruins because shock horror. They've taken a species that was an allegory for trans rights in the 90s, although nice and subtly, and they've made it just a little bit more obvious in disco. Suddenly, everything is ruined, James. Everything.
Like, surely there's I don't know, who's the actor who was in, played Hercules?
Kevin Sorbo.
Yeah, surely there's a Kevin Sorbo drama or a Dean Cain drama you can watch out there.
I mean, there's going to be plenty of streaming services that still have Hercules or Lois and Clark, and you can watch them both. And
rest assured that both those people probably agree with you about disco being terrible.
Yeah, about being absolutely shocking, and therefore just watch them and rest in your mind that like they are just as twisted and bitter as you are. Like it's
semi-negative rant over because we're here to. We're here to talk about why we like this show, right? Not why other people dislike it.
But I mean, I think the thing is that like, yes, it was a slightly negative rant there, but like the thing is, dislike the show for quality. Dislike the show because you don't think like. Some people don't like Sonequa Martin Green's acting. Like, they think that she whispers a bit too much and stuff like that, and she's slightly overdramatic and etc.
I mean, the whole show is slightly overdramatic, but that's what they're going for. Like,
and if that isn't for you, that's fair enough. That is a reasonable criticism of an artistic choice, and if it doesn't tick your box, that doesn't tick your box. But if it's because Star Trek continues to do what Star Trek has done for like 60 years, then it's you that's at fault, not Star Trek. So anyway, it was a great episode.
We got
just a little recap. Obviously, in this series, the big bad is a strange anomaly that they can't quite work out what it is. Is it a black hole? Is it in this one? Stamets thinks it's possibly a proto wormhole.
Primordial wormhole.
Primordial, yeah. So like a wormhole that's trying to be a wormhole. There's two plots.
Three plots.
Three plots. Three plots in this episode.
We have.
What would you consider the A plot, James?
The A plot is Romulan battle nuns.
Romulan battle nuns, yes.
There is a rogue Romulan battle nun who's killed a Federation captain. Commander, sorry. And the Federation want to go after and arrest her.
Suitably, he was a red shirt, so as well, which was quite nice.
But effectively, it's nice to see so far in the future that red has stayed the colour of command. They never changed it up again.
I do love this new uniform as well.
I like the ship uniform. I don't quite. I get why, because it looks cool, but I'm not keen on the battle uniform, the tactical uniform.
Yeah.
However, Federation want to go after her, but in sort of trying to basically bring the VAR back into the Federation, that they discuss a joint mission between the Battle Nuns led by Michael's mother and Michael. And Tilly is trying to find herself.
Yeah, that's sort of the D plot this week, isn't it?
So Saru recommends Tilly goes on the mission.
Mm-hmm.
And they go and try and hunt down this bat. For anyone who, spoilers obviously for the episode as well, but for anyone who hasn't seen Picard, and I know the mother was in the last season, but that's our only introduction in Discovery to the Battle Nuns. So for anyone who doesn't know the core concept of these, I should probably call them what they actually are, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
Rather than Romulan Battle Nuns.
I think I like Romulan Battle Nuns.
So do I, because that is exactly what they are. But
yeah,
in the show they are called the Kuat Malat.
Yeah.
The Kuat Malat, Kuat Malat.
Something
and
like that.
They are champions of lost causes. They will only... They're kind of mercenaries, but you don't pay them. And they take on... They only take on lost causes.
They're like if Grey Jedis and the A-Team
this one has also hired a...
Romulan nuns.
This Rogue One has also hired a bunch of mercenary ninjas, it would seem.
Yeah.
That all vanish. That you're never seen again after they attack the Discovery crew.
Well, potentially she didn't get that many of them, so maybe they just killed them all.
Some of them got away though. They killed the. They killed the expendable Battle Nun then.
No, they because Michael's mum kills all of the ninjas.
Oh yeah, so she was on her own at that point. I do like the choose to live line. It's kind of cool. It's
a lovely line, yeah.
Well, I just walk away from this and.
Yeah. And it's an option.
Yeah. Because they're not
there is some sort of.
They have a code.
Yeah. There's definitely a code. Like they're not just bloodthirsty maniacs.
But the thing is, they will go down for their last cause.
Yeah, and they're willing to do a lot of damage for that last cause as well. So, which obviously is the story with this one because it was the rogue Battle Nun in particular,
and it's the one who trained Michael's mother.
Michael's mother, yeah, and so obviously you'd imagine that there's a certain weighted level to their morality. That like obviously if it's a smaller lost cause, then he wouldn't necessarily go around killing their sisters. But at the same point with this one, spoilers obviously. It turns out that
she stumbled upon a sleeping species, basically.
Yeah,
that was being
a moon that's been turned into a spaceship,
and the species on it were being tomb robbed, basically.
Yeah.
They're psychic species, and they called out for help, and she showed up, and
because their body is rich with latinum, which of course is what all them Ferengis like.
So she pledged herself to a lost cause of this sleeping species, and needed dilithium to power it,
boot up the engine.
And here's where reality hits Michael's. There's a wonderful moment where I think reality hits Michael's kind of. What's the word I'm looking for? Ideological naivety.
Yes.
In the fact, she's like, we would have given you latinum, and Tilly has to point out, no, we wouldn't. She's one person. We wouldn't have just not latinum, dilithium. We wouldn't have given her dilithium.
Yeah, and, especially with how valuable it is, and actually quite volatile.
And she waits for Michael manages to wake the species up, fulfilling the lost cause, and she agrees to be arrested at that point.
Not Michael, the Battle Nun.
Yeah. There's some nice moments between Michael and her mother. There's a nice moment between Tilly and Michael's mother. Yes. Where kind of choose to live gets explained to her. Like, it's about picking a new path in life. Your path, when we're asking you to choose to live, it's because we're the end of your path if you carry on down that line. We're asking you to take a different one.
Which was quite nice because obviously, like, Tilly is arguably Michael's best friend.
Yes. I don't know if there's any arguably about it.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think I think Saru is probably equally as close in a
Yeah.
different way, and then of course there's Buck. Well, Booker, sorry.
Yes.
He's not a shepherd, and so but they have a different dynamic, so we won't count them as best friends. Um, but yeah, I think like obviously it was quite nice because Tilly's parents at this point, as much as obviously she pointed out that they were very distant when they were alive, they've been dead for 900 years at this point.
Yeah.
So like having Michael's mum there to like have a parental figure.
Her describing her mother though was so funny. Like,
yeah,
she didn't like kids or having them anywhere near her or wanted them to need anything from her.
yeah. Yeah, it was wonderful.
It explains Tilly so much, right?
It really does, yeah. And like, I mean, I like Tilly. I like the I like the character.
Tilly is hands down, I think, my favourite character in Discovery.
Because she's very well written. Because she could very easily be just some like campy comic relief, and at times she can be comic relief, but
she does serve a comic, but she's also is the heart of the crew to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Moving on to plot B. How good is David Ajala as Booker?
Very.
He's so damn good, man. Like him and Stamets seem to be working together a fair bit more, having had their kind of learning to get along last episode. And Stamets is going to the Vulcan Science Academy to help prove his theory.
Yes.
And Booker asks to go along just because he needs to be doing something. Stamets is his usual impatient self whenever Vulcans decide to meditate, because that's how Vulcan science works. Of course it does. And you get some wonderful moments between the president of Navarre. Oh, I guess it's the Navarre Science Academy, not the Vulcan Science Academy, sorry.
I think it might still be the Vulcan, because I think it's slightly, because obviously the two cultures haven't fully merged, so there's still individual elements. So I think it possibly is still the Vulcan Science Academy, but
Vulcans like science, Romulans like being battle nuns.
Yeah.
And you have some wonderful moments between the Navarre president and Booker. Like, talking about how his grief is illogical, but obviously it's not to him. And then they have to mind meld to potentially see if there was evidence of tachyons in the air at the point of the explosion. And there isn't any, but he asks to hold the mind meld, and he sees that his nephew did know he loved him. And it brings him a level of peace. A level of peace to what it allows him to forgive himself, I think.
Yeah, because he was, as much as anything, feeling guilt rather than grief.
Yeah.
Whereas now he is free to just grieve, and which obviously is a perfectly natural process.
Yeah.
So, and he doesn't have to feel any shame or anything like that. He can just remember them for what they were. And it's quite lovely, and the closing scene, obviously, with him and Michael in bed, and I absolutely love this simple addition of holoprojectors into people's bedrooms.
Yes,
like it is wonderful. Like, because of course you'd bloody do that.
Yeah,
it's.
I also love Stamets trying to care for him, but still being Stamets. Like, he's trying his hardest to look after him, but he doesn't quite get what he needs.
Because he's obviously someone who is immensely logical, and feels incredibly strong emotions when he does feel emotion.
He doesn't get
but
people.
It's also, he doesn't understand people.
Like, outside of Adira and his husband, he doesn't get people. Like,
and obviously
he
they've got
tries,
something.
but
Well, I mean, they are in theory smart enough to get his logic
yeah, because
and
he
his
also
thought
seems
process.
Tilly's in the same boat, I think, as well. Then
Yeah, that like as emotional as they might be, they're also so intelligent that like he can
I
tolerate
mean,
them in a
you
way.
don't want to
Like,
place any thoughts into a show that might not be there necessarily, especially about things like this. But
mm,
he's potentially a character who would, in the current era, would certainly be on the spectrum,
yeah.
right? Like he that
But again, I mean, it's nice because it isn't on the nose about it.
no,
Like, if that is the case, and it might not be, but it also might be something that they have in their in the back of their mind when writing the character of, let's have someone that's at least awkward, whether they're technically on some
yeah,
sort of spectrum or not. Let's have someone that is awkward, so that people watching it have someone else to identify with. There are plenty, and that's what Star Trek at least tries to do, and a lot of the time
yeah,
does manage to hit. And so, like, he is another real character in what is obviously a fantastic situation, and that's really what Star Trek does best. It makes everyone, even though it's such ridiculous fantasy almost at times, because the
yeah,
science is so far ahead of what we are currently capable of. Um, that the people are real, and
yes.
that's what matters. Like,
And then our C plot is Grey getting her own body again,
mm.
and we see the bar.
Yes, which I think we saw last week.
We see a better look at the bar then.
Mm.
A Ferengi on the bar.
Yeah. Although it looks like he was in uniform, so it almost looked like it was actually his post, because he
Potentially.
was wearing he
Yeah.
was wearing a mustard,
Yeah.
like, so yeah, potentially
Not
that was
every
his
starship
post.
has a Guinan.
Yeah, or a quark.
Yeah. Um and yeah, it's a nice resolution to this little mini
Mm.
story so far. Um Something else I would like to say is how great Dead for here,
Who's that?
the actor who plays the Admiral.
Oh, yeah. Mm.
How great his face acting is in that closing scene,
Mm.
because
Because he doesn't have
he
he doesn't
realizes.
have a lot to do in this, but what he does do is
Yes,
absolutely spot on, isn't
and
it? Yeah.
you're watching him as he knows that this has to happen
Mm.
for the potential of of Navarre joining the Federation politically. What's
Mm.
happening has to happen, but he doesn't like it,
Mm.
and you can tell. But obviously, as is nearly everyone, very much better at controlling their emotions than Michael Burnham.
Yes.
For someone who was raised Vulcan, man. Like,
Well, I mean, she was adopted when she was what 11 or something like that. So I mean, at that point, like
there are
she was.
times where it feels like she uses the like, oh, it's Vulcan logic to kind of rationalize her extremely.
Yeah, but I mean, if you think about it, like she was adopted by Vulcans when like she was probably entering puberty. So the most volatile time in a
She was younger
human's
than
life.
that.
Well, I think she was. I don't think she was that young. I'm sure she was. I think she was maybe 10 or
Yeah,
11.
yeah,
So
10
like
probably.
she would have been right on the cusp of it,
Yeah,
and obviously like coming off essentially being orphaned, she would have
yeah,
been emotional, and then by the time she possibly calmed down from that, like, oh, here's your hormones. There you go. That have some of that. All in a society where it's like logic, like so. There must have been a lot of really pent up feeling
I'm
there,
I'm
and
now of
what
the
have
opinion
you,
though that
and
every new Star Trek project should reveal a new hidden Spock sibling. let's just get hundreds of them.
Did you see that? I think you maybe
I
sent
think
me the
I
link
did,
to
yeah.
it. There was a Twitter feed, absolutely incredible. It's like
Talking about all the potential hidden Spock brothers and sisters.
Yeah, that potentially there was 52 different Spock siblings, because of how, on average, how long a Vulcan lived, how long Sarek lived, the fact that every 7 years they have to have sex, like, so unless you touch your hand in a particular way, have a Vulcan wank, it seems, and like, so. Yeah, it was a fantastic one. Like, like really good thread. If you can find it, then it's hilarious. But yeah, there could be literally dozens of Spock siblings. Especially with the fact that he likes to marry out of his species as well, and so like quite often has wives that are significantly younger and will die quicker. So he
that makes it sound significantly more sinister as well.
Yeah. So. So of course, like, there could be multiple species, there could be all sorts of stuff going on. So like, he's there could be literally an army of Spocks out there.
Cyborg was fully Vulcan, wasn't he?
Who?
Cyborg.
No, he was half human as well. From a
No, I thought he was full Vulcan, because wasn't his mother like a princess of Vulcan or something like that?
Yes, but he fully embraced emotion over logic, didn't he?
I mean, if he was in theory in the same household, then he probably wasn't.
Yeah.
But if there was like a moment where he's like, oh yeah, my half siblings, Michael and Spock. Well, Michael technically isn't a half sibling, but my siblings, Michael and Spock, are like, I'll embrace humanity so I can relate to them more, and then just goes down for.
Yes. Just falls down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Yeah. To the point where he tries to kill God. So,
I mean, it's the logical endpoint of all human endeavour, right?
Killing God, yeah. It's probably what will happen. If there is such a thing as God, we'll pull the plug on them. So, because we're a very flawed
Cyborg, the best of us.
Yeah. Now we'll circle back to plot A. Do we think that species is MacGuffin, or do we think that they have something to do with because when they showed the tablets on the wall of the planet exploding and them managing to get away on the moon, obviously the iconography there could imply something that might have something to do with...
Who knows? It feels like it could be something that's just like a traditional, like, Star Trek, they save a species and they'll never see it again. But in Discovery, it might be a puzzle piece. We still don't know what it is, because obviously we find out it's not a primordial wormhole.
Or is it?
No, it's not.
Yeah.
We don't have the evidence to prove it's a primordial wormhole, so it's something else. And arguably potentially sentient.
Possibly, yeah.
Maybe it's the Flux from Doctor Who. They just stop.
Maybe.
The Doctors just stop the Flux by committing a couple more genocides. As the Doctor's prone to do. 3 before breakfast in the latest series.
Doctor loves doing it.
And she saves the universe.
Yeah.
The Centaurans were basically going to genocide the Cybermen and the Daleks, and the Doctor was like, "Well, if you're going to do that, I may well go for all 3," and tricks them into doing it to themselves as well.
Yeah, that is the Doctor for you, though, isn't it? Like, yeah. But that's for a different.
Commits a lot of war crimes to someone who hates war so much.
I believe you and Connor.
Yes, that will be
Unmasked
up sometime this week.
14-hour chat about it. Or
2.5 hours.
Yeah, 2.5.
We talk about other Doctor Who stuff as well. It's more just a Doctor Who love fest.
No, it's fair enough.
But we talk about Flux a lot. And mainly I talk about Flux is us just kind of describing what happens in Flux and being like, yeah, that happened. And then forgetting something key from an earlier episode that we have to talk about when it becomes more relevant in a later episode, because so much stuff is happening.
Yeah.
Like it is a they really throw everything. It is Schindler having one last season and only 6 episodes to do it and just going, okay, everything I've ever wanted to do with Doctor Who is happening now.
Fair enough. So Discovery.
Yes, it was a good
another
episode.
great episode.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more than I
Yeah.
think last week's episode.
I get you. I think in a way it was quite a nice self-contained episode.
I'm very much here for swords in
felt...
Star Trek. But, I mean, swords have always been in Star Trek. What a Klingon battle axe, but like cool alien swords. But I'm excited for more swords.
I felt this was as close to a self-contained episode as you're going to get in Discovery.
I don't know. Season 2 had a lot of episodes that were more traditionally Star Trek.
Which so I quite enjoyed it because even if this species does have something to do with the overall arc of the season or not, like I think actually it was quite a nice one that fact that it could leave it.
I also have to make no connection to this species. We just press a few buttons and like peace out of there.
Well, or do they? Because like obviously they see thousands of. I mean, one of the closing shots before they go to Burnham's bed is you see the various ships actually swinging round in front of Discovery. Those ships have made a very conscious decision to come quite far from that moon in front of Discovery.
Discovery's not at the moon.
Not Discovery. Yeah, you know what I meant.
The Booker ship, the ship-changing ship.
So they'd swung really quite far out to...
That's a wonderful piece of...
So there may have been some acknowledgement.
That's a good thing for the plot, isn't it? That ship, allowing them to split the crew off a lot more easily because they've got a small warp-powered vessel in the basement. Like, oh yeah, we've got this really cool ship that we can take anywhere we want.
Well, yeah. I mean, well, that's why obviously Deep Space Nine ended up with the Defiant, but also ended up with the runabouts. Because in TNG they did have warp powered shuttlecraft, but they were like limited to like warp 3 or something like that. And then obviously in Voyager they get the Delta Flyer, which is a very interesting idea because like it's almost developed in parallel with the runabouts that is in Deep Space Nine, and so you get a similar idea but executed in a completely different way, because obviously Tom Paris likes old ships and stuff like that. So you've got the manual control ski and like actual physical buttons.
I guess the Sovereign had a captain's yacht as well.
Yeah, exactly.
But on
that note,
I think Star Trek is cool.
Very is. Yeah, very much is.
Live long and prosper, guys.
Good Lord, James has been practicing. And on that bombshell, see you next week. Live long and prosper.